Who, what, where, why, and how? The answers are Inside Health.
In this edition of Inside Health, scientists have discovered that stem cells can convert themselves into kidney tissue. For patients with damaged kidneys, the findings mean it might soon be possible to use stem cells from their own bodies to repair their damaged organs. Unfazed by the spectre of death, Dr. Eva Klonovsky has set herself a mighty task. She's chosen to offer her knowledge and expertise to those who've lost their loved ones to the scourge of genocide in the states of the former Yugoslavia. A London-based medical team is close to pinpointing a gene or genes that appear to give certain people the ability to live to extreme old age. The researchers have already dubbed them genetic booster rockets. And imagine chocolate cake with no calories, or broccoli and tomatoes that fight off disease. These are some of the foods that could be developed over the coming years. But what do today's consumers think of foods of the future? But first, the deadly West Nile virus, a disease which is spread by mosquitoes, is traveling south down the US eastern seaboard and infecting dozens of people. West Nile virus, which causes encephalitis or inflammation of the brain, is passed on to humans by mosquitoes that have consumed the blood of infected birds. Most medical experts now believe that the virus is here to stay. Symptoms include headache, dizziness, weakness, fever, and confusion. Those with weakened immune systems are especially susceptible. Health officials urge people to stay indoors between dusk and dawn, cover exposed skin, and use mosquito repellent. Standing water should be eliminated so that mosquitoes can't breed. West Nile virus is believed to have originated in Africa, where the disease is still prevalent. Detecting such viruses has led scientists at Cambridge University to an exciting discovery. Tiny quartz crystals less than 1 centimetre thick have antibodies bound onto their surface. Samples of viruses are then put on the crystal before it's vibrated electronically. At some point they break off and the sound they make is recorded on a computer. This allows scientists to identify different viruses. The detection equipment has already been slimmed down to a box the size of a video recorder. With time, they hope to develop handheld sets that could revolutionize the time it takes to identify viral infections. A company's been set up to commercialize the technology, but so far it's only been tested under laboratory conditions. The next stage is to develop the system further and undertake clinical trials. It's hoped it will soon help in the fight against HIV and hepatitis B. Forensic anthropologist Eva Klonovsky has a stubborn belief in justice and no fear of ghosts. The Polish doctor has a home and family in Iceland, but for the last 6 years she spent most of her time around Bosnian mass graves and morgues, trying to solve one of the world's biggest forensic puzzles. The bodies of more than 20,000 victims of the ethnic cleansing of the early 1990s are still unaccounted for in Bosnia and Herzegovina, while the identity of thousands more who have been found has not been established yet. Dr. Klonovsky is determined to find them all and to reconstruct each skeleton to the point where she can present the grieving families with positively identified bodies that they can properly mourn and bury. According to Dr. Klonovsky, the pelvis bone is the most useful in identifying the sex of a body. In this case, a female in her early 30s. The bones are organized in heaps, as are the clothes and other personal effects, waiting for Eva and other experts to cast their eyes over them. For Eva, the ultimate victims of the genocide are the living ones. The cannot actually acknowledge the loss of their loved ones until they've been found, identified and properly buried. Amor Mosovic, the head of the State Commission, who is often by Eva's side during her gruesome excursions to the heart of darkness, feels nothing but gratitude and admiration for Eva's passionate commitment to her work. Together they've discovered an unnerving pattern to the killings. Most of the people found in mass graves were shot twice, once in the pelvis so they'd be immobilized, and then in the head, finished off execution style. This cruel procedure has further hampered efforts of identifying many of the bodies. Eva admits that she often feels sad at the thought that the thousands who died weren't killed by a handful of fanatics, but by thousands of people capable of such evil. Under the eyes of a handful of family members, the grim load is laid out on the ground. Fragments of clothing, often blood-stained and always covered with mud, are displayed for the families to look at, in hopes that someone will finally recognize them. Tirelessly, sometimes in extreme heat or drenching rain, Eva spends her days holding pieces of bones in her gloved hands, looking for those parts of a skeleton that can best reveal their owner's identity. Some days, Eva sees an end to this work, but at other times, when she returns from the death pits with buckets full of bones, she thinks she'll be here for the rest of her life. At the Imperial Cancer Research Fund in London, Dr. Richard Paulson and Professor Nick Wright studied a group of men who had undergone kidney transplants from female donors. They discovered male kidney cells in the transplanted organs, proof that the body was making new kidney cells from within the bone marrow. Paulson and Wright both share the belief that within 18 months there will be a practical stem cell treatment for patients with damaged kidneys. One of the biggest causes of kidney failure is diabetes. The condition causes the loss of a great deal of kidney mass, and it's hoped that soon doctors will be able to use a patient's own cells to regenerate that loss. And because a patient is providing his or her own stem cells from their own bone marrow, rejection won't be a problem. Adult stem cells won't replace the need for kidney transplantation. But other researchers are currently looking at ways to grow whole new kidneys from fetal or embryonic stem cells. Stem cell treatment could reverse the downward spiral of kidney damage and stop the growing number of people needing to rely on dialysis and transplant operations. In jump-starting its own fledgling biomedical industry, the Singapore government has poured the equivalent of $1.7 million to fuel research and startups into the city-state. This fast-growing and largely unregulated sector has so far been providing its fair share of winners, namely in the highly controversial area of stem cell research. In a world's first clinical trial, Professor Liang Hin of the National University of Singapore and his team have successfully used stem cell technology to cure growth defects in children. Full-grown adult stem cells were cultured in a laboratory before they were introduced into the bones of 3 children with deformed or stunted limbs. This has then helped the children's limbs to grow normally. Doctors would prefer to use embryonic stem cells rather than adult stem cells in order to extract master cells, or in simpler terms, better repair kits for cells damaged by incurable diseases. However, various ethical and religious groups around the world have thus voiced their objections to embryonic stem cell research. And the Catholic Medical Guild of Singapore is just one example. Made up of 300 doctors, the Guild staged a 10-day prayer vigil that culminated in a mass prayer session. The doctors prayed for an hour against the killing of human embryos in stem cell research. According to the president of the Catholic Medical Guild, Dr. John Hui, destroying embryos for research is an act against God and human life. He likens it to killing a man and harvesting his organs to save other lives, which of course is regarded as murder. Nevertheless, in a bid to become a hub for the industry, the Singapore government has already taken a major stake in Australian-based company ES Cell International. The company is emerging as one of the biggest players in the production and supply of embryonic stem cells for research, and owns 6 out of the 60 or so embryonic stem cell lines worldwide. Yet, in a sector which has seen little regulation, the controversies over the use of human embryos persist, as nations around the world wait to take a stance. But it's business as usual in Singapore as the investments flow in. Not only is exercise good for the heart, but it's good for the brain, especially for elderly women, according to a new study in the journal Archives of Internal Medicine. The research tracked healthy women over the age of 65 and found that those who exercise regularly were 26% less likely to experience cognitive decline than women who exercise less or not at all. According to Dr. Gigi Al-Bayoumi, Associate Professor of Medicine at the George Washington University Medical Center, physicians have long suspected that exercise has multiple benefits for the elderly, including lowering blood pressure and preventing memory loss. Al-Bayoumi tells her patients to exercise at least 90 minutes a week, with everything from tennis to walking and yoga. Helen Thomas attends aerobics and weight training classes 3 times a week. Not only has she lost 25 pounds and lowered her cholesterol, exercising has improved her frame of mind. Thomas believes she and others in her class are living proof their golden years are just beginning. And if they were looking for any more inspiration, they get plenty from this old-timer, Tsukasa Sato from Shibataki, 250 kilometers northwest of Tokyo. Preparing for a triathlon in Japan's searing summer heat is a grueling task for any fit and healthy athlete. But imagine what it might be like for 73-year-old Sato. This determined septuagenarian plans to compete in the upcoming Sado Island International Triathlon. He has to train hard for this tough endurance test, which in his category includes a 25-kilometer run, a 106-kilometer cycling race, and a 3-kilometer swim. Back at home, he makes sure he gets the right nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates and lipids, all essential to surviving the triathlon. He rarely eats meat, preferring fish and vegetables, which he cooks himself. The thing that Sato finds most difficult is balancing the needs of the various disciplines. Building up the body fat needed for swimming is then a problem when it comes to running. In his spare time, he practices on the piano to relax after a hard day's run. Playing the piano is Sato's other hobby besides running the triathlon. He began after he retired around 10 years ago. When he finally quit his job for what was supposed to be a long, restful retirement, his beloved wife died. According to Sato, he found the triathlon a good way to make sense of his life. Now he averages about 5 races a year, and the latest meet on the island of Sado will be just another notch in his already long list of athletic achievements. A As Sato reaches the island a week before the competition for a practice run, he manages to keep up easily with his much younger rivals, and they in return are impressed with both his mental concentration, strength, and experience. Sato rarely manages to reach the podium, and his times aren't exactly earth-shattering, but then again, he's almost 3 times the average age of most of his competitors. But despite the competition, Sato intends to participate in every race until the very end. His drive and dedication has won him the hearts of many Japanese. And while she won't be hopping on a bike anytime soon, Britain's Queen Mother is one of an increasing number of individuals who are living past 100. But there may be more to extreme longevity than good nutrition and staying healthy. It may have a lot to do with genetics. A new study conducted in association with the National Academy of Sciences found a region of human chromosome that appears to harbour a gene or genes that confer remarkable longevity. The researchers speculate that centenarians with this extra gene may age more slowly than everyone else, and either greatly delay or completely avoid age-related diseases such as cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. The team is confident that their research will profoundly change how we think about aging, and expect to someday find drugs or genetic booster rockets, as they call them, to mimic what these genes do. At present, however, aging is determined by what we do with our environment, whether we smoke, whether we eat the right things and get enough exercise. Even with an average set of genes, the right combination of these factors should get us to our late 80s in very good health. Cultivated for more than 2 millennia in the harsh high Andes at altitudes of more than 13,200 feet, Miracle Maca can boost your sex drive by up to 200%, according to a study presented recently. Maca, which looks like a tiny brown turnip, has a strong smell and what some consider a disgusting taste. But Peru's experts believe that it can cut stress, boost energy and well-being, and increase fertility. For Peru, which gave the world potatoes and the malaria treatment quinine, maca is yet another unique hidden treasure. According to scientist Gustavo Gonzalez of Peru's Cayetano Heredia University, the world's first study into maca's effect on both animals and humans showed that it reduced blood pressure and had no adverse effect on the heart. It was then announced at a press conference that maca raised the libido of all 12 test subjects by up to 200% and doubles sperm production. Peru is currently the world's only maca producer, although Bolivia had also begun growing the vegetable. Peruvians consume maca boiled and in powder or tablet form. It's also starting to be exported, notably to Eastern Europe, and the market is growing in the United States. Billed as the Peruvian ginseng, maca has great commercial potential, and it's hoped that in 5 years' time, exports will grow to $100 million, making maca Peru's second most important agricultural crop after coffee. According to Spanish chronicles, Inca warriors took maca to prime themselves for their missions, and athletes, particularly those in endurance sports, have long praised the native Peruvian plant. If these scientists have their way, the whole world will soon discover the well-kept secret for themselves. Meanwhile, lackluster lovers shouldn't rush to throw away their Viagra. Maca may boost desire, but it doesn't share the wonder drug's lifting properties. Food irradiation is approved by dozens of leading health organizations around the world. And as outdoor grilling is a popular activity, selecting meat that's been irradiated can eliminate 99.9% of all harmful bacteria. Irradiation uses electron beams or X-rays. It's similar to scanning luggage at the airport or heating food in the microwave. According to the National Food Processors Association in the US, sanitizing one's hands and handling food properly are the best ways of eliminating most germs. And while irradiation won't lead to radioactive food, it will kill bacteria and leave meat's nutritional value and natural flavors intact. In the United States, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate that foodborne bacteria contributes to nearly 76 million illnesses and 5,000 deaths each year. Imagine eating fruit that could cure you of disease, broccoli that could combat cancer, or even bananas that were grown in a cold climate. These could be some of the foods of the future, and now the British Department of Trade and Industry is asking consumers what they think of the hypothetical future fare. One possible food of the future is chocolate cake without the calories. This one is unfortunately loaded with calories, but for all those who like to indulge, the zero-calorie cake could be the answer to a chocoholic's prayer. Not surprisingly, the zero-calorie cake has really caught the public's imagination. And just like the foods of the future, packaging of the future could be smartened up as well. Scientists are now working on packaging that changes color, telling consumers that a product is out of date. The smart plastic packaging reacts to particles present in stale, sour or over-ripened foods, which then alerts consumers of their condition. Scientists, biologists and food technicians are working together to bring these exciting new products to supermarkets and shopping centres near you, hopefully within the next few years. That brings us to the end of this edition. We look forward to your company next time when once again we can show you what, where, why, how and who is Inside Health.